Hello, hi Kathleen.
Hello, Kay. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. A cold winter's afternoon here in the UK, and
Yeah.
I'm sure
And
it's
normally I get to say in Florida it's so warm and sunny here, but that's not the case.
I
We're
heard that.
we're
Yeah.
supposed to go down to 23 degrees Fahrenheit tonight. So,
Well,
but yeah, it's crazy. We've had some crazy weather here, but it's something different.
yeah,
Not that
absolutely.
boring old sunshine every day, you know?
And also, I think it just reminds us in all the work that we do, which is you deal with reality. You
Yeah.
deal with what your senses are telling you, and know the difference
What can I
between
do?
the outside world and that fight. It shouldn't be like this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rally against
What
it.
can I do with this cold?
No, I've got a hot water bottle. There.
Do you? We
I
are
want
resourceful.
I wanted to wear my DHE t-shirt,
I
but
know, I see. It's looking
um,
sharp.
but I've got a blanket and a hot water bottle. What can I say? Improvisation.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we thought we would talk about today is one of my most favorite subjects in the whole world, and I think probably yours too, which is building on the conversations that we've had previously around the importance of creativity and all those beautiful, juicy brain states, but specifically design human to engineering, DHE, which is the t-shirt that I'm wearing, which is, of course, Richard's, I think, absolute best and latest technology. But I'm relatively new to DHE. I've probably done it about four times, probably in the last 12 years or so. But I think you've been involved in DHE for many, many
Many,
years.
many years. Yeah, I've kind of seen the evolution of the evolution. It's
I'd love to hear a bit about that. Yeah, when did you st when were you first
well,
exposed?
one of the first DHEs was in a time when NLP was so overrun. There were so many people doing NLP and they were doing different versions of NLP and Richard loved NLP. I mean, it was his baby. It was his life work. Um, and as you know, Richard is obsessed with optimization. It's never good enough. It's like he's never done. It's never good enough. It can always be better. It can always be optimized. It can always be improved. So he looked at all the work he did in NLP and he said, there's got to be faster ways, to do these things, the installations, the experiences. It wasn't enough for somebody to say, I feel great. He wanted them, when they say, I feel great, to hear a chorus of gospel singers in the standing on the top of the mountaintops singing hallelujah inside your head, and to have an explosion like the 4th of July going off in your chest in terms of fireworks. And it wasn't enough just to say I feel great. He wanted to create almost ecosystems inside that would just take that feeling beyond. And so he started to think about, how do we make things faster and smoother and easier and quicker, but more powerful. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. I think the biggest distinction between NLP and DHE is NLP is a great experience and it's a fabulous learning seminar. DHE is more of an experience. It's not necessarily a seminar to learn stuff.
Yeah.
You will learn. Of course, we learn, going out shopping for a pair of boots, you learn something that day while you're in that process. But it's more of an experience
Yeah.
for you to work on you as opposed to learning how to help others, learning how to help yourself. This is a true experience. You walk into DHE, you get put into the vortex, and you come out the other side and you're like, whoa, and you go home with a present that we'll talk about later. But so DHE is more of an experience, and it works with designing how you want the inside of your brain to be. Um, I know you're the goddess of happy brains. You know, that's your thing. You want everybody's brain to be happy. And so what happens when your brain is happy inside? You know, what does
Oh, I
it
think.
sound like? What does it feel like? How does the world look like when your brain is happy? You know, taste like, smell like,
Yeah.
you know. So everything is just, oh, I'm happy, today. And I know that's what you do for your clients too. It's not enough just to be happy. You want to be able to do things with that happy brain. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
the
So,
first seminar that I went to in all about the experience. So he literally had, back then it wasn't a big thing, but he had these recorders that were pretty big compared to now, that were not three-dimensional. We had the 3D holophonics, but these were like DAT recorders. They're digital something, I don't know all the terms for it, but they're super sensitive recorders that record sound perfectly. And he was giving them out to the students to go out into the world and collect really cool sounds. So, they were near an airport, so they heard the planes taking off and they recorded that, you know, plane taking off. And somebody else recorded some children at a playground giggling and laughing. And that was the assignment that day. Everybody went out with a recorder and collected really cool sounds. And Richard then put them into his thing that he had, the the sampler, and made all these sounds in there, so that during sessions or trances, if you're talking about motivation, you could say, and now as you look at that goal and you fire off the sound of the airplane taking off, and it you could see the client would just like, whoa, like they rock back from the takeoff. They could feel themselves moving to the goal. So it was learning how to enhance the experience of change, to enhance how you experience the new goals, the new feelings, the new abilities, the new skills. The second part of it was looking at what people do. So if you've ever had some contractor work done in your house, you have a contractor come in and he looks and goes, okay, so this is 23, well, in, you would say centimeters or something, but for me, a contractor walks in and goes, oh, this is 23 feet by 14, and you go, yeah, how did you know? You never even took out the ruler, because he's done it so many times. He built one inside his head. He built a measurement device inside his head because he did it through repetition. And Richard said, well, why does it have to take 154 times to measure a room before you can look at it? So the second part of DHE is about that installation. If you can, if a human being can do it, anyone can do it. And it's about knowing the strategy. And the strategy not only is just the how to, but it's that stuff that happens inside your brain too, that sets the right mood, the right chemistry, the right neuroscience, the right brain chemistry to be able to do that thing. So that was twofold, and it was mostly about gathering sounds and experiences, and then seeing what that sound did to the body and the state and the abilities, and then also learning how people do things, and then how could you replicate that? So, and that's a little more than just the standard, hey, do you play the piano? How did you learn to play the piano? Well, first I talked to some people, and then I looked at, then I played the piano for many hours, and you do a VAK strategy, and then you install the strategy in somebody else. But you can't install Chopin's strategy for playing the piano into someone who's never sat in front of a piano, because there's other things, muscle memory and experiences that go on. So DHE was sort of this evolution of going beyond just a typical, here's a strategy, put it into somebody else and have them do it. It was about understanding the whole representation of how someone experiences something. So that, and it's gotten cleaner and more optimized now than it was. Back then, we were doing a lot of work. Now, we have a pretty good system where you can put people into different experiences and having them build what we call in DHE their control panels, where you can layer the effects of all the submodalities and all the representational systems. So you have your dials for your auditory and your kinesthetics and your feeling visuals and things. So building those panels and building that representation allows you then to shift and move things differently in your brain. At the end of the seminar, we have them create a 3D holophonic recording that they can take home of their new internal brain. And that's a lot of fun. You've done that. And it's a lot of fun and it's a really cool recording you get to take home on a little SD card and have the experience. And the 3D holophonic mics are great because you put headphones on. And in fact, when we first got the 3D holophonic sets, we went out to the theme parks. We went on roller coaster rides and we went on carousel rides, the horses that go around up and down and go around. And then you put the recording on somebody else sitting in a chair with the headphones, like the carousel, and all of a sudden you see them going like, they're like moving up and down with the sound, it's like, because it just gives you that full experience
Yeah.
of what was going on when it was recorded, and so it's like you have headphones with here, but you hear somebody talking behind you. It's very trippy.
And
And we have a lot of fun building that too during the
oh,
DHE
totally.
sessions
And
with
I was just
everybody.
thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I'm remembering the number of recordings that I have. But for me, it was the focus to the plan of what my brain needed in order to get the best out of it. So,
Yeah,
that meticulous planning of, well, I want somebody in that direction speaking in a certain tone and somebody in that
right,
direction speaking in another tone. And these are the words and this is the music. And that was unique to me. No other human on the planet would make sense of it. If they bought it
right.
at a shop, it would not matter. And that uniqueness is, well, it's the first principle of NLP is, every human being is totally and utterly unique, and we study the subjective experience. Uh,
Absolutely.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
And
that,
see, that's another distinction with NLP. And NLP, you say, okay, so you have somebody, if it's double induction, you might have somebody over here, you might have somebody over here, or you're speaking to them on the side. We don't want you in their face when you're talking to them or working with them as a client because then they can't have their experience board in front of them, So we're having somebody off to the side, but it's not enough to just speak to the side
yeah,
in DHE, we understand that there's vectors.
yeah,
It's not just here, but it's a certain angle that it comes in at is going to make all the difference. And, we don't necessarily touch on that in NLP because there's so much to learn in NLP, the basics, the fundamental building blocks, the rep systems, the language patterns, the submodalities, all that stuff we want to make sure they have as a foundation. In DHE, we say, okay, here we go. We're going to give you a whole different experience of how to enhance what you do. And that doesn't mean you have to have a practitioner to do DHE because I know people have started with DHE. And at first I said to them, are you crazy? Are you sure you want to do this? And they were like, yeah, no, I want to start now. So I want to go do DHE first. And some of them that, I asked them if they were crazy. And they actually have become NLP trainers. They've actually done great things. And they said it was fabulous for them to have that first and then go in and learn the building blocks. So it really doesn't matter whether
right.
have the practitioner or not. The DHE is a useful toy because it is a toy. It is something to play with, to enhance, to give you great experiences. And like I said, it's not a learning seminar, it's an experience seminar. You get to optimize you. You get to be your own mechanic, you get to be your own mad scientist, whatever you want to metaphor you want to use. You get to change how your brain works and design, like interior design. What do you want to go in and interior, what do you want to build in there? What do you want to upload? What software do you want to upload? How do you want to register all that? When I was first learning DHE, um, I was going to the gym like I don't know, it was about 4 days a week. We were going to the gym, and sometimes you get to that last rep, and you're like, and just trying to get that one last rep in. And for me in DHE, I put a little tiger head almost like Windows, had the little icons. So there was a tiger head. And if I was trying to do that last rep, I would go in and just in my mind go in and touch that tiger icon. And all of a sudden my body would be like, "Arr!" And it was like, and I'd end up doing two more before I stopped, when I was struggling for that last one. So, I mean, there's all different ways that you can, because you're anchoring that state with that neurochemistry attached to it, with that, belief system and that value and all that stuff is tied into one solid piece that when you fire that off, it's like,
Yeah.
an explosion of experience, whether it
Really,
be just to total enjoyment or motivation or whatever.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
And even those words, they're so if we think about those, when people say, I want motivation or I want confidence, and we know that those are nominalizations, but through the DHE lens, this is how my brain interprets this,
right.
there's this, wow, look at all the data points, past, present, future, the
Exactly.
data, the submodalities, the energy that sits behind the language that's being spoken, and there's so much data. And
Yep.
that's what I love about DHE. It's like you're going in and I often say to people, I'm like a mind mechanic. You go in and you find these wires and you sort of move. But that's how I would well, I do use DHE every day with my clients,
Right.
going back to self. That empowerment is probably needed more now than ever before, because the world's full of people who aren't taking responsibility for their own outcomes and emotional states, and
Yep.
and that empowerment. I use DHE with little kids. I'm just like, oh, I'm going to dive into your world. I want to know all those
Yeah.
data points, and have them come up with a song or a sound or whatever it might be, a picture or whatever it might be that they create for them. That makes recently was writing up a case study of a little girl that I worked with who was bedwetting. I think she was about 9 or 10 at the time, and it was becoming very problematic. And helping her to engineer, well, to discover what the engineering was of the faulty system, and then
Right.
come up with her own new system that included words that I would never have come up with, and sounds and pictures, and I
Yep.
love that. That is real freedom, isn't it? That's,
Oh yeah,
one of
absolutely.
the
Absolutely. And that's, part of the beauty of it. When Richard was first explaining to me what DHE was all about, and he kind of used the metaphor of, like a Ferris wheel. If you think about there's a Ferris wheel around
Mm,
you,
mm,
and maybe there's multiple Ferris wheels.
mm,
And, each kind of car could be a belief or a value or a meta program, different things that are going on. And they all spin, but they all have to line up in a certain way. This belief with this value with this meta program, when that lines up, that's, a certain
yeah,
behavior, or a certain state. Now, you don't just have one, but this is all around you. And in DHE, we show the pictures of the globe. This is all around you. That's why when you're working with clients, sometimes you ask them for a particular picture. Think of a time when you made a great decision, and they literally go like,
yeah,
and they're looking at a particular place,
yeah,
and it's angled. And if you go here and they go, no, up a little bit, no, over, okay, you got it. Because that has to be lined up
yeah,
with everything. And that's why all those pictures that are likeness are kind of in that same place, and then pictures that, maybe things you doubt, those are all lined up in a different place, in different angle, in a different storage, because your brain has to line everything up to access that pack of things that are stored there. So it's not just the submodalities, all high belief pictures are big and bright and colorful for me, and all doubts are small, and those are submodality language, but also in the angle and the positioning is crucial.
yeah,
And that's why in certain cases when you're doing swish patterns or things like that. It's not enough to just push something out and pull something in. Sometimes you have to cross that meridian to come back to change it because it has to come in through a different route that allows you to have that state. So it's so, I mean, everything is just so 3D. It's like the 3D version of NLP. That's, I guess, a simple
Yeah. And
definition.
actually, I would probably say, from my experience, it's not even 3D, it's multi-D.
Yes.
But, you know,
Yeah.
there are so many dimensions, and just when you think you've kind of got the map, you can dive in a bit more and find, oh,
Yeah.
and those, you know, those little bits. I love the Ferris wheel lining up, but yeah, you know, for what else needs to line up to get
Yeah.
going.
There's all sorts of things, everything that we talk about in NLP, values and meta
Yeah,
programs and beliefs and,
yeah,
and strategies and, anchors that we have, they're connected or chained, it's just all of that stuff has to, you know, line up in a certain way and then bing, that's where you go. So it's really it's a fun seminar too. I mean, we do things like, we have a science fair one day. Um, in the seminar where we try on crazy stuff that you might want to build into your brain. So, you stare at the Jedi tube with the ball in it, and with your brain waves, you move the ball up and down the tube, and it's like, wow, that's, telepathic, telekinesis, abilities, Well, who knows? Who says you can't, So, but it's fun to take your brain in, and then we have the brain machines that allow you to see the different paths in your brain, left brain, right brain, and the different trails. And we have Chris Wiley from who's an NLP trainer, but he's also a neuroscientist, and he comes in with his equipment and so it's like a whole science fair day and we do things through muscle memory, like sharpshooters or so we have little sponge darts that we can shoot and you get yourself in a particular state and you notice how your scores increase. We pull out the dowsing rods and the and the pendulums and see if we can find things. We have night vision glasses and hearing enhancement devices so that you can practice all these different things to really expand your experience because the more you can expand your experience, the better and creative ideas you get for building that final piece for yourself. I love it because especially when I see all the students on the floor with huge pieces of paper and crayons and rulers and they're designing the interior of their brain. And it's like, it looks like a bunch of children on the floor, which I love, playing and coloring and creating, And I think it's good for all of us as adults to do that kind of fun stuff again. I have the advantage of a 5-year-old granddaughter, so I get to color and be silly and goofy and do kid things and build stuff and knock it down and laugh and I think as adults we don't always get that opportunity. So DHE, you can do that. You can, I don't suggest you have to lay on the floor. We have tables and stuff set up, but some people prefer to lay on the floor and color and then that night we have a mad scientist party because we should.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we have a mad scientist party and we celebrate all the mad scientists that came before us and Einstein and Tesla and Milton Erickson and we have Milton Erickson's brain in a jar. It's not really his brain though. But
Oh God.
so I mean, we just have it's a whole celebration of being able to expand your mind. If you think you know what a seminar is supposed to be, forget it.
No.
It's an experience. And that's the key is because like you said, the creativity is the key and
And that's the
being
one
able
thing
to
that
do that.
all of those, you know, the greatest scientific minds of all time, the one thing they've all got in common is their ability to imagineer
Yeah.
and change their states on purpose,
Yeah.
which of course,
They didn't believe in the norm, you
no,
know.
no.
They
Was
didn't
that
believe in the norm.
Arthur C. Clarke quote, which is, yeah, if you want to do something about Oh, what's the barrier to possibility? You've got to venture past the impossible to find out, something like that. And I think
Yeah,
that's right. If you don't, how do
yeah,
we know? How do you know that's the
yeah,
limit?
yeah. I mean, try saying that to Richard. You can't do that. Like, huh? You know,
How many years have you been actually running the DHE programs?
I would say it's got to be a good somewhere between 35 and 40. It
Oh,
came on pretty early, but it wasn't that popular. They weren't on a regular basis. Every once in a while, Richard would do one. And like I said, he would send us all out with recording devices and they would be, because he was building it, over the several years. He was having this idea of, he was just tired of doing things the normal way and seminar way. And he wanted an experience to really hone in on the things that were going to make change more powerful and optimize what he was doing. So, I mean, he started working on this a while ago. I would say at least 35 years they've been doing it. I mean, we've been with Richard probably close to 40 now, somewhere between 35 and 40. And when we first started training with Richard, it was the beginning of a DHE was sort of out there and once in a while happening. So, yeah, so it has to be close to 40.
and I know that lots and lots of people do it repeatedly and they get new certificates for the level that they're at.
Yeah.
Just I can't remember what level I'm at, but but do you find
Yeah.
the question in my mind is because I know that every time I've participated, I like always, we meet people where they're at, and then there's another universe that opens and another one. And I was thinking about ahead of this, I was thinking, well, you must have seen some quite extraordinary experiences of participants who have returned and returned, and each time they found
Oh,
something new.
absolutely. Because, I mean, in any seminar you repeat, you're at a different level going in.
Yeah.
So you're going to be noticing more things than you did the first time. I mean, that's even simple down to there's a movie called Airplane. I don't know if you've ever
Oh,
seen
the
it. It's a
comedy.
comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like every
Yeah.
time I've seen that movie probably 10 times.
Yeah.
And every time I see that movie, I notice something else in the background that I didn't notice the first 9 times that I watched it. So, and it's like you're at a certain level with it. So when you go there, you're starting at that level and moving forward. You've already tried the experience that you've designed for your brain. Maybe it's been 2 years, maybe it's been 10 years. And now you have other ideas. It's like Richard, it's never good enough. You could always enhance it. You can always make it better. And now that you've proven to yourself that you can do these things that you didn't think you could do, now what else can I do? So you move forward, you move beyond. And the DHE has not stopped evolving.
Yeah.
Our NLP practitioner has not stopped evolving. We're always looking at ways of making it better, making it easier, making it faster for people to be able to, get the information and do stuff with. Because we're committed. That's why we don't do the online licensing courses. We're committed to people having skills. I don't care that they can repeat back the patterns or they know what the rep systems are I want to see them work with people face to face, experience, listen, feel the person sitting in front of them, notice things that you're not going to see in this kind of Zoom world, and work with people. So we're always committed to having people enhance beyond where they were. So when they come into a DHE seminar, even if it's DHLE level 9 or 10 or whatever, they still love it. They come back and they still go beyond what they thought was possible. It's and
Totally.
yeah,
And I think in my own experience and talking to some of our colleagues, building in more into the machine each time for, what else there is to calibrate as well as setting direction, but there's that calibration skill on a deeper level that just
right.
gives you this constant biofeedback loop of, well, self-responsibility, but also really empowering.
Oh yeah. I mean, even just simple things. You work with children. Here in the United States, they tried to get rid of cursive writing. They weren't teaching cursive writing for a few years.
Crazy.
And it was insane because that movement,
Yeah.
that ability to create those curves and calibrate and do them and practice them, the movement of their hands connecting to their brain was helping them install the information. So then you had kids that were having structuring problems with reading and bad strategies for reading because they didn't have the brain body connection that was helping them install those letters. And now my granddaughter, she's 5 and she's homeschooled and she goes to a special school a few days a week, 3 days a week to socialize and also be assessed. Um, they're starting cursive before the block letters. She's doing cursive already.
Mhm.
And her handwriting's better than mine. I gotta tell you, she's
Wow.
she's like, you know. So, but it's and she loves it. It was like they thought they were gonna win over things with the kids, not having to force them. So maybe it was the technique they were using to teach cursive, could be, because they felt that it was a chore and kids didn't like it, and you know because they were I know I was criticized when I was a kid learning cursive. Teacher was always like, "That's messy. Start over," ripping the paper in front of me, and giving me a new piece of paper, and yeah, I hated cursive writing because the way I was being taught, and
And yet it's the
but
most natural
it was a
thing.
mistake
Yeah, the most
to cut
natural
it out. Yeah,
and if I always think about when you watch people who doodle,
yeah,
because it is the most natural thing. And I look back through my notebooks from every course that I've ever been on
yeah,
with you, and they're rammed with doodles. And I just need to look at that doodle, and all that information comes
yeah.
out.
And
And
and people say, "Oh, you're doodling because you're bored."
no,
No,
no, no,
it's a
no.
process that
Right?
you're connecting your brain to what you're hearing and what you're experiencing. It's a natural process of learning. And I don't know, the teaching field has missed that for some expect. I mean, there's some great teachers out there. I don't want to knock on teachers in education. Um, and they miss that point. Some of them have missed that point that it's not about, being bored or being forced to do something. Make it fun. You know, my granddaughter loves cursive writing. She's got every day they send me pictures when she's doing it because send this to Papa and Papa. Send this, show them look what I wrote, and she's all excited about it. She loves it. She thinks it's art. To her, it's art.
Yeah,
She's
yeah, well,
creating
it
art,
is.
which
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
great attitude.
And I'm thinking to what you were saying before. I know when we learned cursive writing, it had to be a very specific way. And one thing I've discovered about myself over the many decades is that my handwriting has changed massively, but it is always an expression of my internal state and where I'm at.
Hmm.
And the more I've developed, the nicer my handwriting has been.
Yeah, yeah.
And that,
It's like wand work.
yeah,
Magic. It's all how
that's
you move the wand.
entirely. Oh, that's I was just looking down through the I had a big load of notes, and one of the quite so that I could ask you some questions, but actually you've covered so much. Thank you. Um, who is DHE not for, would you say?
Who is DHE not for? Well, it's certainly not for people who are not adventurers. If you expect to be spoon-fed and to, have, like in calligraphy teaching, they had the dotted lines that you had to follow to do the calligraphy. You know, what my granddaughter's learning is there's no dotted lines. You have a picture that you're supposed to repeat, but they're not telling you that you have to start here and then move this way first, then do this, you know. Um, so if you expect the dotted lines, it's not exactly. Now, that doesn't mean if you're a novice, you're not going to get help to learn how to do the things we're asking you to do. Um, but if you're the kind of person that is not an adventurer, you don't like to learn new things, get excited, do find new ways of doing things, then you're probably not looking at our seminars anyway. So I don't know.
Well,
Um,
you
you
say
know,
that, but I'm also thinking about how many people and social media, for all its issues, exists. But so many people talk about it, talk about
yeah,
NLP, talk about
right.
DHE, talk
Yeah.
about NHR, talk about.
It's for doers.
And there are lots of community groups on, particularly on Facebook, but further on the internet, where what would you do with this? What would you do with this problem? What would you do with this pattern? What would you? And they miss it. And I think those are the people who
They
well,
should be at GHE.
yeah, they probably should be, but they
Yeah,
would they would because that big message of you have no
yeah.
idea until you're in front of the person.
I have
No idea.
I get tons of emails every day. I get messages on Facebook, I have a friend who does X, Y, and Z. How can I help her? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't know? You're an expert in NLP, blah, blah, blah. I don't know because I don't have that person in front of me. I can't hear what they're saying and how they're saying it. I can't hear the patterns. I can't assess the shifts and what's going on and where their eyes are moving. And, it's like you can't do that. You can't say, if somebody has this problem, do this, this, and this. That's when NLP fails. And that's why all these fast programs, 3, 4 days or online program, a lot of them miss that point, and that's what we drive in any of our seminars is that you have to understand this is a living microorganism in front of you and it has its own way of doing things. And you have to find to me, it's like a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
You have to find the secret map, and get the path, get to the X so you can, you know, dig the hole and release the the negative stuff and find the good stuff. So it's, for people that have that kind of, love solve a problem, love to, have an adventure or discover something or, do something. Definitely a seminar. I mean, and not to say that there's certain people that shouldn't do it because I've had people come to DHE and on the first day they're grumping because, well, I don't understand what's going on. And I'm not sure, I'm like, okay, so you don't like to have fun, okay. I thought this was going to be a serious seminar. So, oh, it's very serious. We're very serious about you having fun. Um, but and it was, and not that it's you know, I mean, Richard works very hard during this seminar, and John Laval as well. The two of them, they work very hard, and we training staff like you, Kay, integral people in our team that are there to help people. So if you get lost or you get, you've so many resources available to you. So I don't know that there's anybody that shouldn't be there unless they're, the people that are just there to complain and this isn't the right way to do it. I want to do it this way, and why don't we have this or why don't we have that? Grumpy people. But
But
then again,
even
I'd love to have grumpy people so we could ungrump them.
yeah,
So
exactly. It's
that's such
all
a hard question. You have asked me the hardest question that anyone has ever asked me in an interview. You win, Kay.
oh
You win the award. I don't know who shouldn't do it.
because you can
But
talk
just
yourself.
if you're going to do it, expect it.
Yeah,
It's going to be an
yeah,
adventure.
yeah.
It's
And
not frivolous. It's not that kind of fun, but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
going to be a great experience.
yeah. You can't not benefit from it. And I was talking myself in and out of, well, yeah, I can think of some people who, wouldn't be appropriate for because they take themselves way too seriously and so on. But then I've talked myself back into, yeah, but they
We
need,
can unserious them.
yeah, we need them.
We can help them become unserious. Well, not unserious, but serious in a different way.
Yeah.
To
And
be
that,
excitedly serious about getting things you want instead of just
exactly.
grumpy serious.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. And so there's a DHE coming up in March. I'm going to put the details of that in
Yeah.
with the recording of this.
This will
What
be the last one in a while, by the way.
oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Because we rotate that middle
Yeah.
program in March, and we've done it for the past 2 years. So this is it's going to go rest. It's going to go to the stable and rest for a while while we run some other medium events that middle piece in March. So yeah, so it'll be if you're serious about doing DHE, now's the time to think about it.
Yeah.
So what other questions do you have about DHE?
Oh, well,
You said you had a whole list of
I did
questions.
have a whole list. It wasn't some, well, it's partly DHE, but I was really interested in your experience. So obviously, I have my experience of it as a participant and as a
Mhm.
as an assistant, but I'm just thinking about all the fun things that you've seen and heard from participants and team members along the way. That was.
Yeah, the team members really it's difficult with the team because as you know, I'm speaking with you as well. It's like, you know, you guys always want to get into the experience, because you're
Yeah.
DHE. I want to do it. We're like, okay, we got to make sure we get all the students done with their 3D holophonic things at the end. And then, and you guys are all like puppies just looking at me like,
We
you
want to
gonna
do
get one too? Yes, but we got to make sure all the students go first. It's like, okay, okay, okay. So, so
it.
it actually motivates you guys to work harder to make sure everybody gets their stuff lined up and get smoothly, get the groups in and out because we have to do it in silent rooms, and so we're getting the groups to make sure they got their stuff done. Not that they walk into the silent room ready to record and they're not ready, and so it's like a whole fun thing.
That's
Um, and
brilliant.
then all the team members when we're done, all the students are done, then it's like, oh, okay, guys, now you can get yours done.
Oh,
So the team members themselves, are still wanting to, experience the the pinnacle, the acumen of the whole seminar comes down to that moment when you put it all together and record it for yourself. And you guys want that too. So that always makes me laugh. And I know what I see during the exercises, if the group's doing good and nobody's got their hand up, I look over and there's two team members doing the exercise off to the side, still watching to make sure the students are okay. Because it's one of the only seminars where I see that so prevalent
yeah.
that the team themselves want to dive into the experience while they're there because it's such a valuable experience. Now with students, it's cracked me up. At one time we had a pilot who was having trouble passing one of the exams because they have to be able to measure angles. And so I didn't realize this, but when you're a pilot, sure, you spend time in the simulators and you have gauges and you have dials, but you also have to have that ability freehand because what if all the dials go out? What if all the mechanisms go out? So they have to be able to measure angles. They have to be able to, recognize, like the contractor, recognize distances and things like that. And they do it through countless repetitions. And there was one guy kept failing on the angle thing. And I walked into the seminar room. We had two rooms going with the exercises. And so I was in the other room. When I came into the main room, there's a guy on a chair, standing on a chair in the middle of the room, and everyone's around him with different marks on the floor. And I'm like, what the heck's going on in here? Because he had to do it from a higher distance
Uh-huh.
because he's on a plane and he has to see the ground when they're coming to land. He has to be able to get the angles. So he's standing on the chair and he's like this, doing this.
Wow.
With the steering wheel thing that they do, and he's doing this, standing on the chair. And they've got different dots on the floor, and we had some devices that measured distance, and we had the protractors, so they were measuring angles on the floor with the beam coming down from him, and they're measuring the angle of the beam hitting the floor. And I was laughing
Wow.
because he was installing
Yeah.
his angle monitor. He called it his angle monitor, and I was like, ankle monitor? And he's like, no, angle monitor. I said, okay, you might want to find a different word for that because that's too close to something else. So he called, I forget what he called it after that, but he did change the name of it. And and he was building this in and everybody was helping him, so they because they have those measuring devices that put out a red beam, like a red light, like on a
Yeah.
rifle. They you see
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
red dot. So they're putting the red dots on the floor. He's standing up, and he's going, 5 feet, 45-degree angle, and he's calling it out, and the next person's doing it, and they're all measuring, and it was so cool to see because he was, building that in, and they would sit him down in the chair real quick and put him into trance and build, what he just did and gave him all the right connections for the belief and the value of how he can do it and continue to do it and he'll feel good and what he's going to say to himself when he's looking at the angle, put him back up on the chair and doing it again, it was
Love it.
and
It's so,
and
yeah.
he emailed me afterwards and he said, I passed the test. And I was like,
Cool.
yes.
Cool.
It was great. So, there's so many things like that, are just fun memories during, some of the DHE seminars.
Fabulous. And even just that concept of you've got a control panel inside your brain. So you
Yeah,
can control your intelligence. You can
yeah,
control masses of things. That whole concept, I think, alone is worth the experience for to get to experience, whoa, yeah, I can change that. And we know that, how these things are used in medicine, in medical situations with health and all sorts of areas.
yeah.
Yeah, building.
It's so important. I mean, and the whole notion of the control panel, like we know in NLP that, you can raise the sound in the picture and it's going to change the way it feels, or it might change the brightness in the picture or something like that. In DHE, we go into a little more of that. How does those synesthesias work? It's all about the synesthesia. Because what we don't always realize is that if you do raise your voice, or you do change the image, bring it closer, bring it further away, what else shifts automatically?
Yeah.
So as you're changing one thing, the other levers are automatically doing their own thing. And what's that connection? What's that formula? So that, and it's simple in NLP land, it's simple enough. I've done it with people when they go, well, what's NLP, really about? And they go, would you want to change the way you feel about something? I go, yeah. I go, think about something you're frustrated about. And they go, oh God, blah, 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 my friend's driving me crazy. Oh, yeah, okay. Do you have a picture of your friend? Yeah, yeah, it's right. Where is it? Right here. Okay. Push it far away.
Yeah.
And they look at it and I go, now how do you feel? And they go, oh, wow. I go, well, that's a simple version, It's like you just change the way you, because they're here.
Yeah.
Every time you turn around in your mind, they're here.
Yeah.
So they're annoying. Push them away a little bit. Put them off to the side, you know. Look at something that makes you feel good, Now look back at that person and you go, well, yeah, they're annoying, but they're not as bad, Yeah, because you shifted, the formula inside. You shifted the format of how they're stored and how they affect you and how they affect your own neurology. Um,
And
you and I giggled about neuroscience now, about how they're finally catching up. Thank you.
uh,
It's like the things they're saying in neuroscience now is like Richard's been saying for 50 years. I'm like, thank you for catching up. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, we've talked a lot about that. Yeah, totally. That's beyond crazy, isn't it? Oh, I love it all. I'm super excited that there's another DHE coming up. And as you were speaking, that popped up into my mind was, and you were saying, gradually neuroscience is catching up. I do a bit of martial arts, Yan Xiao Gong and things like that, but it's sort of looking at the internal structures of movement. And there's like they've just discovered this thing. Of course, they haven't. The Shaolin monks have known this for
Exactly.
but there's this thing, or if you pull this string in that direction, if you move here, this happens, and da da da, and yeah, that's all brilliant for awareness, somatic awareness, but we do it inside the brain. And that so yeah, so what happens if you move that string that way? What happens if you move this? And that's the
Yeah.
DHD way, isn't it? That's the
Yeah.
point. So let's find out.
Yeah. It's a great analogy. It's,
Yeah.
and it's a fun program.
Yeah.
It's an act, and you won't be bored, that's for sure. It's not a war, and I said, trust me. I said, I know it seems crazy, but trust me. You're going to be coming to me on the last day going, I can't believe it's the last day. I can't believe the seminar's over already. Like,
And when can I come back?
yeah, guarantee. I've
Yeah.
never had anybody, mid-program or second, third day go, I'm so bored. I can't stand this. I can't do this. I was like, that never happened in 40 years of training. And I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people we've seen over the years. Never happened.
Uh, uh,
So don't make that
Kathleen,
a challenge.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Kathleen. It is absolutely a joy
You're
always
welcome.
to
See, I'm drinking my coffee,
talk
and
with.
my coffee has the caffeine molecule
Oh,
on the
excellent.
on the cup, so my brain knows what I'm doing. It knows what I'm drinking. That's my DHE mug, my mad scientist coffee mug. It's like, so every time I take a sip of coffee, I'm looking at the caffeine molecule and going, "Do your thing, do your
Mm,
thing."
yeah, this well, but then yeah, if you start to look into the sort of metaphysics of that symbolism in your field, in quantum field.
I'm a scientist by training, so that's my degrees in college were science, and I spent time as a scientist before, research scientist before I found NLP. So I've always had that, and that's the thing that all of this, because when I was in college and younger in high school, I was always looking into like the Zen stuff and all the different, you know, um, what most people would call, what do they call that? Woo-woo kind of stuff,
Yeah,
it's like
new
all
age.
the esoteric things and always, and then I get into them and then it's like, you guys are just all this your own belief system stuff coming at you and it's like, no. And then I found NLP
Mm,
and I was like, okay, I'm going to see what this is. It's interesting. My husband had actually done a practitioner course and I liked some of the things he was saying when he came home, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then it was the first time that any of these self-improvement stuff actually made scientific sense to
yeah,
me. It was like, oh, okay. You know, now we're making sense. And that's when I fell in love with NLP and with DHE because it really fed that whole, it makes sense biologically, it makes
yeah,
sense scientifically,
yeah,
and then people will argue, well, there's no scientific proof that any of this works. Yeah, because they keep looking for what you said about social media, that if somebody has this problem, you do this and it works 100%. No, because the person is so different. Each person, I've never done the same thing
no,
with the same person that has the same problem. First of all, it's not the same problem, even though you might categorize it as a bad anchor or something, that you have to change. It's always different because each person is unique and different. That way, you have to build the skills in order to have that adaptation, to be able to adapt and understand and change. And first skill is to be able to calibrate.
yeah, 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 totally,
Yeah.
totally, and keep your attention on the outside. I,
Yeah.
I,
And
I
the
used
creativity to come up with
and
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh, curiosity. Ooh, I wonder what would
Yeah.
happen if I
All our
do
favorite
this.
stuff.
Yeah. Excellent. Ooh, it's all very tingly and wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Kathleen. I'll put some
You're welcome,
details
Kay.
in the
Always good to talk to you.
it's always lovely to see you and talk to you. For anybody out there who's remotely interested in this conversation, get in touch with either of us. And if it's with me, I'll direct you to Kathleen because the font of all knowledge, certainly regarding all of
Yeah.
Richard's technologies, which
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
many
And
varied
Richard
and
and John
wonderful.
together are like
Beautiful.
magic.
Yeah.
They're just magic because Richard just spins all this stuff
Yeah.
and you're sitting there and your head's going like, and then John comes in and just sort of
Yeah.
weaves it and goes, now here's how you do it, and they just, loop into that
Totally.
runs every day and it's fabulous.
I,
It's a
you know,
great,
and
we call them the dynamic duo.
and rightly so. It took me quite a few years before I really got to sit. I see what they're doing there. Ah,
I see what you
oh,
did there.
yeah. Wait. What that thing then? And so, and people would come up and say, oh, it's just that same story again. And I'm like, really? You've just missed
Just
this
completely.
huge chunk of absolutely delicious movement in, oh my God, yeah. But
Yeah.
eyes to see and ears to hear, I think. Um,
Well, thank you very much, Kay. This was fun. A lot of fun.